All right,
All
Deb, you ready
right,
to rock and
it's
roll?
4:30. We're going to get started. Hi, everyone. I'm Deb Crawford, Supervisor of Mathematics in Frederick County Public Schools and lead on the Virginia Data Science team. I want to welcome each of you to K-5, Navigating the 23 Virginia Math Standards of Learning Revisions. And I'd like to turn it over first to Allison from VASCL to welcome you, and then on to the man with the plan, Skip Tyler. Allison.
Let me unmute myself. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Allison Dwyer Selden. I'm the Professional Learning Coordinator for VASCL. So I'm the person that sends emails out to you all the time. And we are very happy that you're here today. I've had the pleasure of participating in the Tuesday session of this for high school and the yesterday session for middle school. And you're in for a treat because you have two people with deep knowledge about the math standards as they were and the math standards as they are now, and will offer you a lot of great advice on how to navigate as you shift as appropriate from one to the other. And in addition, you're going to get a lot of wonderful information about data science today. So I'd like to thank Skip and Deb very much for taking the time all week to do this, and I'm looking forward to this. Thank you all for giving up evening time. I know you've taught all day. I know you're tired, and it just demonstrates your commitment to the children in your schools. So thank you very much.
All righty, I'm going to jump in now and let's get ready to rock and roll. Again, I'll just echo everybody what they said. Thank you for being here. I know it's been a long day. We are going to have an interactive session. We're going to have some breakout rooms, so you don't have to turn your camera on if you already got your bathrobe and slippers on. I totally get it. So let's dive in. We are looking at the 2023 standard revisions and what we can do to help prepare for that. So first off, I like to start off everything with a type of reasoning routine. And this one is basically it's called a Synectics routine, where I'm giving you a picture. And what I'd like for you to do is look at this and think to yourself, revising math standards is like this picture because blank. And so what I'd like for you to do is in the chat, put in what your because is. Why are revising math standards like this picture? Because don't press enter on your chat yet. We'll do a waterfall response and get everybody's response at once. So take about 20 seconds. Type quickly.
Ruby.
All right, 3, 2, 1, enter those wonderful answers. And take a scroll of that and see how we're feeling today. It's hard to navigate. It's rough. It's a wild ride. Oh, a lot of people think it's wild. A lot of changing stuff, working together, risky, bumpy, fantastic. Yes. So for this, it's nice to see no one really, was super negative, which, hey, congratulations on that. When I was selecting this picture, I want to share with you what some of the ones I had a choice of choosing, but I opted not to. So these are the rejected photos. You can see that, oh, hey, the first one, top left, we're hanging on for dear life. The other top right is we're getting ready to go over a cliff. What's underneath us? I don't know. So for these, we know that the standards are always challenging. Change is hard, but we're going to make the best of it here. And we're going to show you some tips and tricks to make it easier for you. So our agenda for tonight is really looking at the big picture changes from VDOE, examining those VDOE resources and the big overview for K through 5. And then we're going to spend a lot of time digging into the process goals and the data literacy. Again, we'll have an option to do a breakout room where we're going to look at the pedagogy and assessment and sort of simulate what you might be able to do either with your PLC teams or with your districts. And then we'll have a little reflection and survey at the end. So our goal for today, it's basically what I just said. We're going to look at those standards of learning and identify the changes that are going to impact our instructional practices. And our goal at the end of this 90-minute session is that, number one, you can identify where these resources are and how to use them to support your transition. And then also examining how the embedded process goals are going to impact instruction. And this is the one I'm really going to hammer home on. And then Deb is going to come in with the data literacy and talk about how we can engage students in that data cycle. So we're going to do a little, elementary game. We have 14 seconds. I want you to spot 6 differences, and you can type them in whenever you see it. I'm going to start the clock now, 14 seconds, see if you can get all 6 of them. Ready, set, go. 6 differences. All right, bow tie, that's 1. Mushrooms, 2. All right, now it's going too fast. Great. Trees, 6. And time's up. Okay, did you get all 6, Deb? Did we get 6? I'm not sure, but I think it's pretty close.
Yes, we
see
did.
how interactive. All right. See how interactive that you were with that one. So we're going to play that exact same game, except this time, spot the differences of the 2016 to 2023 SOL. So I'm going to give you the same thing. We have 14 seconds. I want you to tell me every difference you know right now in this 14 seconds. Put it in the chat. Ready, set, go. What are the differences between the new standards? More detail, new numbering, numbering and labeling together. Yes, numbers. It's not as many answers coming on here. All right, K is going from 20 to 30. We're getting details there, images. All right, fantastic. So what we're going to do this part of it is really look what these differences are, or at least the 5 differences that I've identified that are sort of the big picture. So let's start off with the first one. If you remember in 2016, we had the curriculum framework, and that was a supplemental resource for the 2016 standards. And it contained essential knowledge and skills and understanding the standard information. So in the 2023, we do not have that curriculum framework, and the standards are included, the knowledge and skills are included within each standard. So you may have heard Tina Mazzacane and Deb Delosier and the VDOE team talking about the dynamic instructional guide that's coming soon. They're referring to it as the DIG. So that's coming, which will be sort of like a digital version of our curriculum framework document that's more real time. And then there is no crosswalk document, so I'll show you how to access that. The next difference y'all put out in the chat is really the numbering. So for this one, if you take a note and see that the 2023, all of them begin with a number and then letters and then another number. So the one you see here, the 4 is 4th grade, NS is our strand. So we can really look and see what individual strands are, or what the content is by strand. So it's the number sense, and then it's the first standard of that strand. So each of these has a key that comes along with it. But now when you see the standard, you'll know what the strand is that's associated with it. So that's difference number 2. Difference number 3, this is the one that in our other sessions that we've had, not a lot of people know about. So this is the front matter is found in the K-12 Standards of Learning document. I know a lot of the teachers are going in and looking at the grade level specific, and this front matter is not located in that. So I'll show you where this the K-12 document is later. But in this, there's things to look at that I've highlighted in the table of contents. There's the 23 guiding principles, and then also the 23 background on the revisions and roadmap for successful implementation. So I do want to highlight, though, that the 6 guiding principles of these standards are the one you see here. The first one, raising the floor, removing the ceiling. Then the other ones are, number 2 would be ensuring every student builds strong mathematics foundational skills, which I think you'll see a lot in our K-5 curriculum. The third one is mastering critical content. The fourth one is integrating math across all content areas. 5th is preparing teachers to teach math accurately and effectively. And then the last one is the applying mathematics to better use technology. So those are your guiding principles. Take a look and read those later on. It's worth seeing there. And then a lot of the other information about the backgrounds too. The 4th difference, and this is something we're going to dive into again today, I'm going to say it a couple more times, is looking at this from 2016 to 2023, we have a new graphic. The process goals are still there. The difference now, though, is the process goals. They're embedded in the standards instead of being in that paragraph above all the standards. And for this, again, the thing to remember is the content of the math standards is intended to support these 5 process goals for students. That was the statement for the 2009 to 2016, and it still applies to the 2023 standards. So that would be difference number 4. And the final difference that we're going to talk about, and this is what Deb is going to take over, is looking at how the K-12 data cycle plays out. How are we looking at the formulating questions and collecting data, organizing it, analyzing it, and making sense of it. So that's a quick overview of really the difference between the 16 and 23 standards. What I want to dive into now is take a moment to look at what VDOE has created. And if you haven't done so, send VDOE an email, just thank them for all the work that they've done. They're a small team, but they're doing a great job of developing and releasing all these documents to support implementation. So I'm going to go through these. You may have seen these, you may be aware of them, but it's good to see it again. So the first one is the obvious one, looking at the standards document. And really, I put this here because I want to make sure that you're looking at the latest version of the documents. Because of the fast timeline of the approval of these, we had the draft come out, and then 2 months later, another draft came out, and then they were approved a month later. So I was working with a teacher recently who had a draft copy of it, and they were using the wrong standards. So make sure that you're using the August revision when you look at these standards. If you're not sure if you had the right one or not, we'll go to the website and I'll just click on the PDF and download it. And that is going to be right here. This is on the 2023 VDOE webpage. And just like the 2016 version of it, there's a table. This first row is the one that I was referring to about the front matter. So in this all math, if you click on this Word or PDF, you'll see this 2 table of content items that I highlighted earlier about the guidelines in the background. They're not going to be included in the other one. So take a look at those. So we are going to dive into these other 3, and this is growing. This last column came in probably about 2 months ago, or 2 weeks ago, rather. The prioritization of content. We'll talk about what's in that document too. But first off, let's start with the overview. So the overview of revisions document, similar to if you've been teaching for the last iteration from the 2009-2016, it's going to be very similar to that. So it shows the mapping of the 2016 SOL to the 2023. And what I'm going to continue to emphasize tonight is pay attention to the difference in the verbs along with the content. So as mentioned earlier, there's no crosswalk document. This is, the standards are now here. You see it is what it is. The EKS and the curriculum framework documents are now sort of woven into the standard directly. So the standards might be a little bit longer, but that's because we don't have the curriculum framework document. So the next part of that overview of revisions document, at the very bottom of each course, there's a summary of changes. And one section of the table provides an overview of the changes and the numbering to the standards. And this is what I would say consider your crosswalk document. What I would tell you not to do, though, is just take your regular pacing guide and just rename with what the old version is, what the new version is. Because sometimes with the process goals and the depth of understanding, it's going to change how you may want to sequence that. So really dig into what the changes are instead of just changing 4.9 to 4.mg.2. The other section that you're going to see is the parameter changes and the clarifications. And the parameter changes and clarification might be related to an increase or decrease in the limiters of the standards, or even the knowledge and skills. And it might also be related to the depth of understanding, since we have process goals being woven into that, just in terms of the content or the scope of that content. So that's the first 2 parts of that summary table. The other 2 sections in that table are the deletions from the 2016 standards and the addition to the 2023 standards. And so for this, be really careful when looking at the parameters, additions, and deletions, because it may not reflect every single thing that has changed. These are more the big picture things. If we put everything in here that changed, it'd be a much longer document and it'd be a little more overwhelming, and probably you wouldn't enjoy reading it as much. So these all come from that overview document. The next document that we're going to talk about is the narrated overview of the revisions. So what I would say is compare this document to the overview document we just looked at. And the narrated PowerPoint presentations have red text wherever there's a change. So you can see on this one, the 2016, if there's red in that 2016 column, it provides notes about where the content may have been moved or deleted. You also see symbols that indicate the content is new to that grade level of the course. And then revisions that are listed at the bottom also are going to help you out, give you a little more information. Anything that's read over in the 2023 are changes and additions, things that you need to pay attention to. And what I would really encourage you to do is download this as a PowerPoint and then play it, and you'll see you have the little narrated version. A lot of our math leaders across the state created these presentations, and it goes into a lot more detail than what's written on the documents. So that would be the narrated overview. And then the newest, latest, and greatest would be the prioritization of content document. And this document really looks at the prominent changes between 2016 and 2023. And each course document contains 3 sections. The first section is the critical instructional transitions, where it's looking at what is the content that may have moved that would cause gaps in student learning if instruction is not provided during this transition year. Now, so if you look at this one, you'll see the 2016 content is moving from grade 3 to grade 2. So if you are a current second grade teacher, you need to consider how you might be able to embed this third grade SOL into your instruction this year, or the students might have a gap in their own learning there. So that is the only critical change for the K-5 section. The other two categories here are the overall instructional transitions. These are the revisions that span across the grade levels, and this is what Deb and I are going to be talking about tonight. The process goals and the data cycle, they both apply K-12. And then the last part, the specific instructional transitions, this is really the meat of these documents. These are the revisions that are specific to grade level or courses, and include instructional notes that support the transition and help you make an easier transition from 2016 to 23. So when we look at going back to that second grade narrated PowerPoint example that I showed you before, what I've added to this is the instructional notes from the prioritization document. So these are the two documents sort of placed together. And you can see that the instructional notes provide more information for the standard 2.ns.4a. So here's identifying that, and now it's going to give you some other instructional notes for that. So this is where I would really encourage you to look at all these documents and don't look at them in isolation. As we're preparing for this transition, look at the standards, look at the overview, look at the narrated PowerPoints, and then also look at the prioritization ones. They should be used in conjunction with each other. So if you're working with a team of teachers, each one of you have one of these out, so you can then make it easier to talk. Or if you have multiple monitors, split them all up there and go to town. These are going to really help you determine how to supplement your existing curriculum and incorporate content into the 2023 standards. So a lot of VDOE stuff. Again, shoot them an email, tell them how great they are. It's they're getting hammered with this timeline too, just like everyone else is, but they're on the front end of it. So here the next part of this session is the overarching changes that's happening in K-5. The first thing is there's a greater focus on the computational fluency with recall being something to sort of pay attention to on that. There's improved progression of conceptual and procedural understanding of fractions. There's additional data analysis. Again, Deb's going to talk about that. And then the increased inclusion of the process goals. I'm going to be talking about that. But we'll look at the first two to begin with now. As we look at computational fluency, really, this is the ability for students to use strategies to figure out math facts quickly and efficiently. And a student who has computational fluency would be able to use strategies together with facts he or she knows in order to figure out more challenging problems. So these are the skills we want students to be able to do, is to be efficient and to be flexible and to be accurate. And that's how we're really going to develop this computational fluency. The basic fact recall develops in tandem with computational fluency. I think that's a really strong and important statement to remember, is that we don't just say memorize it. We have to give these strategies and ways, reasonable amount of time for kids to make sense of it themselves. As we're looking at the progression of the basic facts, you'll see recalling facts, if you've looked at the standards, recalling facts with automaticity in grades 1 to 4. And so that's something that it's really important to remember, that the acquisition of basic facts develops in these 3 stages. They're not really perceived as distinct or discrete units, and all 3 stages are critical to subsequent retention and recall of basic math facts, as well as the development of computational fluency in general. So noticing how we have to get the conceptual understanding, I would almost say that's first, but again, this is all in tandem, and then use those reasoning strategies in order to get to the recall. So keep that big picture item there. As we look at the computational fluency with addition and subtraction for our K2 folks, in kindergarten, we're developing conceptual understanding and reasoning strategies, but not dealing with automaticity. In first grade, we're building on the conceptual understanding from kindergarten, and then now we're doing conceptual, it's expanding to numbers up to 20 with reasoning and automaticity of addition and subtraction facts within 10. Second grade builds on the conceptual understanding of first grade. So that's where that whole vertical articulation is really, it's streamlining things. But the conceptual understanding is now looking at reasoning and recall of adding and subtracting within 20. As we look a little bit further, getting into the 3rd and 4th grade, now we're going to put the eye on multiplication and division. So in 3rd grade, conceptual reasoning and automaticity of multiplication and division occurs through 10 times 10. And then in 4th grade, we're expanding the reasoning and automaticity through 12 times 12. So in later grades, students are going to continue to develop proficiency with and retention of basic facts through the computation with larger numbers and rational numbers. But it's really important to go back to the earlier graphic of showing here are the parts that we need for computational fluency, and here's how that all fits together with recall and how it works in tandem. As we look at this next part of developing an understanding of fractions in grades 2 through 4, fractions have been removed from kindergarten, and halves have always been a part of grade 1, but notice that now grade 3 is using models. So 1st grade, we're describing and justifying equal parts. 2nd grade, we're composing a whole in context, which is now including 8ths and 3rds and 6ths. 3rd and 4th grade are composing and decomposing, but 3rd grade now introduces models, where 4th grade is with or without models. So it's, again, looking at this vertical progression. And if you haven't taught that grade level before, make sure you're looking and seeing what happens before and also what happens after. As we look at the computation of fractions in grades 3 through 6, in 3rd grade, fraction is as a model. In 4th grade, we're looking at the sum and difference of two fractions with like denominators, and in 5th grade, sum and difference of two fractions with like and unlike denominators. And then the other row there, 4th grade, single step contextual problems with multiplication of a unit fraction and models. And then 5th grade, we're doing the single step contextual problems with proper fractions and models. So, and then 6th grade gets to, let's go, multiply and divide proper and improper fractions. The key thing, all of these deal with your answers being expressed in simplest form. But again, hopefully you'll see, and it makes sense to you as to why we're doing the progression in this order. So if you have students that are already mastering things, go deeper with the content. Don't accelerate into different grade levels. Master what they got. And now we're getting to the part where it's going to be more interactive. I know I've been chatting a lot here, but this whole idea of embedding the process goals. And this is, again, is one of the overall instructional transitions because it does go K-12. So we're going to spend time digging into this and how it impacts pedagogy and assessment. So I want you to look at the verbs on this slide that are bolded. In kindergarten, we have explain, and then describe, justify, represent, apply, communicate, explore. So these are all the verbs that really are at the heart of the process goals. So VDOE in the past, again, always had this listed above the standards, and it was pretty much the paragraph that people skipped over when they looked at their standards. Now that they are part of the standards, VDOE is bringing the idea of pedagogy where it hasn't been in the past. So we need to consider as teachers, how do we teach problem solving through our standard? How do we teach reasoning through our standard? You can't just say, hey, kids, go practice some critical thinking. And we've got to give them the experiences as teachers. And so you'll hear me use the phrase change a story. That's sort of my mantra and my motto. And now that I'm doing support and working with teachers, is we've got to change how we're teaching to meet the kids where they are and make them thinkers in our classrooms. So again, process goals used to be at the top. Now they're dug in here, and they're coming along for the ride. So what the process goals allow us to do right now is to let students experience the joy and love of math. It goes back to those authentic learning experiences. If you have students saying, when will I ever have to do this in life? They should know that now, because we're giving them contextual problems with that. It's a big shift in our 2023 standards. So we want our teachers to get students thinking about the content, about the math, about the conceptual understanding, and not just focused on the assessment and how to get the answer. It's much more intentional with hints of pedagogy. So when I'm going to show you a couple slides here coming up, but what I want you to really think of when I show you these slides are these two questions here. Is how does the integration of the process goals impact my instruction as a teacher? And then also, how does the integration of process goals impact the assessment? So again, the process goals are the end game. The standards are how to get there. Let's take a look at a standard here. So this is a kindergarten. And so again, if you just want some practice, it used to be K3. It's now moving to K.NS.1, which means it's in the number sense strand. It's the first strand or first standard in that strand. And as you look at this in 2016, students had to identify the number after. And in 2023, students have to state the number. And also notice the standard uses flexible counting strategies and the new content. So I'm curious, as you're looking at this, again, this is the narrated PowerPoint. This is the prioritization document that I put together. But how does this impact instruction? So, for example, state. When I talk about the this other question, how does it impact assessment? On an SOL, they're not going to have to state something. It's going to be, that's something you're going to be doing in classroom. And really, if we want to go deeper in the classroom, so the SOL seems like it's a piece of cake, the SOL test it is. So don't focus on the assessment, focus on what these verbs are, focus on how we're supporting our students to go deeper and understanding of the content. Taking a look at another one of these, we're going to jump to grade 3. And so the information here is also, again, from the grade 3 narrated PowerPoint and the prioritization document. And notice the addition of multiple representations, asking students to describe and give examples, and being in context. So with that, same type of thing is, how does this impact instruction? How does this impact assessment? And that's where you're seeing new content. So what would you anticipate yourself having to do differently, where in the past, in the current standards, it was we had to measure, we had to count, we had to do some estimating and determine. This is all really about getting an answer. Now, describe and give examples, contextual, make sense of it, justify, explain. This is where I'm going to understand if you know what we're talking about, or if you're just a great problem solver. Little skipper, when I was in the younger grades, I could remember rules, I could get answers. But when it came for me teaching, I had no idea why things worked until I started teaching. I'm like, oh, there's the connections. So that's what we want to do is, I was successful in class, I was successful in math, but I didn't really have that full mastery and understanding of what I really needed to. And I think of myself, if that was for me, then what was it like for the students who had more challenges remembering those rules? That's why we need to focus on a conceptual piece. Looking at the grade 5, this is the last one we'll take a look at, and then you'll dig into it. So this information, again, is grade 5 narrated PowerPoint with a prioritization document. I'm trying to model that part for you so that when you start working on these yourself, you're pulling these documents together. And so on this one, notice again the addition of multiple representations, asking students to describe and give examples and being in context. This really hits our data cycle piece of formulating questions and limiting that. So for this, Deb's going to really talk more about this, but it's really like, what the heck does this mean? And what have we done? Have we done this before? Is it the same? So now we're going to be really looking at that. What does it mean to be limiting to 30 or fewer data points? What are the different methods? Can I do polls, observations? Am I giving students choice? How does this impact your instruction? And how does this impact your assessment? Again, you're not going to have a hard time. We're not going to see something like this on an SOL test. So that means that in your class, you need to be coming up with ways for this to make sense, ways for kids to understand it, and ways for you to truly measure, do they understand it? So we're going to take some time now for you to jump into some breakout rooms, and you're going to go through this same process here. Now we're going to have 20 minutes where you're going to be in your groups, but during this time, you're not going to be able to go through all of it. We're really just simulating what it's going to be in terms of supporting you and transitioning to the 2023 standards. So what I'd like for you to do is to think about which one of the grade levels you'd like to go to. And there's 2 different breakout rooms that we're going to, when we open it up, you're going to be able to go into whichever one that you want. Once you get into that room, you're going to open up the slide deck. You should have, Deb has been putting the presentation in the chat. So you can come into this document, you can click on these live links and go to the room that you want. And then once you're in that room, have one person in your group go ahead and share the presentation so that if there's somebody who has a smaller device or screen, they can see what's going on. But then have conversations about that individual standard. What does that look like in terms of what are the process goal verbs? How does it guide my pedagogy? And those documents that I have linked here, I've created for you. So it has the narrated PowerPoint notes on the left side, and then the right column is where you can put your notes about how does this impact my pedagogy? How does it impact my assessments? And so we have 45 people in here. There's plenty of rooms as well. So try to, if you go into a room and there's, already like 6 people there, maybe bounce into one of the other ones and we'll try to keep them balanced. If you need help getting into one of the rooms, just stay here and we can move you there as well. So for that, let me open up the breakout rooms. And does everyone understand what the task is at hand? We're going to work until 5:20. So we have 20 minutes here. When you get to your room, introduce yourself to the people that you're with. I'll be coming around and bouncing around to that. And so at this point in time, go ahead and jump into the rooms that you want. And we will we'll stay here and help you move around if you need it. All right, welcome back, everybody. Hopefully what you experienced there is something that you can now go and replicate with your team, wherever it might be, whether it's at a district level, whether it's within your school. So please consider that. And you can also have access to seeing what the other grade levels were just by clicking on those. They're basically every grade level had room 1 in there. I think first grade had 2 rooms, I believe is what it was. But if you go in there, you'll see it. But I enjoy popping in here in the conversations. So as we transition to our next part of it, this is the other big change that we talked about earlier in the evening, about the data cycle. So just looking at the verbs here, the questions that are being asked, Deb is going to take it away with data cycle and tell you how you can make this work in your classrooms. So Deb, take it away.
Thank you, Skip. Hi, everyone. Really happy to have you really think about the data cycle and the importance of data literacy, K-12. So let's get started. We always start with a data talk. I don't know about you, but I did go to the movies this summer and Barbie and Oppenheimer were trending. So what do you see? What do you notice? And what do you wonder about this map? We've got some geospatial geolocation data here. Please put your noticings and wonderings in chat. You can also unmute if you just want to open it up. I'd love for someone to get us started. Katie's noticing Mississippi really was into Barbie. More females live. It was going a little fast for me. I'd love to compare this to a political map. My kids actually said that. Oppenheimer in the north. I'd love to, I'm wondering, it relates to politics. What makes something, what does a scale mean? Okay. What else are you wondering about? I was surprised at how many states were even at 0. All right. Very nice. If you are unmuted, that would be great if you could mute, unless you're sharing, that'd be great. All right, what else do we see? So the New York Times took this in a different direction and looked at total ticket sales for that opening weekend. And so Barbie and Oppenheimer, you'll see over there on the right, and look at opening ticket sale weekends from 2019 to 23. What do you notice? What do you wonder? Please put that in chat. I'm loving, Christina's saying, why are more southern states pink? She's wondering about that. Everyone in New Mexico wanted to make sure the narrative was done right. I love it. Thank you so much, Annie. Yeah, Los Alamos, the location for Oppenheimer, in terms of at least the real location. Some of the filming was done elsewhere, but yeah, awesome. All right, so what do you notice here about Barbie and Oppenheimer versus some of the big ones, Avengers and Spider-Man? And I've shown this to kids this fall. I've shown it to preschool teachers. I've shown it quite a bit. Why did they combine Oppenheimer and Barbie? I wonder what age groups are for each movie. Nice. Action films were more popular. Nice. And so data talks allow every kid to have a voice and really get the math discourse going. You guys are experts at math routines, number sense routines. Add to your math routines data talks. And so there's some resources here for you to enjoy and to check out. The data science team in Virginia made 10 videos, and one of them was how to do data talks. And we really emphasize students doing their own data talks. So choosing a visualization and actually leading the data talk. And then there's a great idea from Fairfax County of a student data talk journal, which is really cool. And you'll notice here, the student is looking at the visualization and in his journal writing down what he noticed and what he wondered. He noticed the plants that were exposed to light grew more, whereas the plants that weren't exposed to light were kept in the shade, they were shorter, and he wondered why the difference in height wasn't as significant. And so if you want to check out the rest of his journal, there's a link there for you to check out. So why data science? Why data literacy? And so obviously we're living in a data revolution. In the last 2 years, 90% of the data that exists has been created, and most of it is unstructured. So that means it's not in rows and columns in a spreadsheet. It might be images. It might be, geospatial heat maps. It might be social media data. It might be entries in a medical log. And so how in the world do we analyze all of those data? Well, employers are desperate to find people who can do that. Data-related skills you'll find in the top 10 emerging jobs. And 2 years ago, the federal government said that out of the top 20 emerging jobs, 17 directly involved data science and the other 3 indirectly. And so if you think of your school, your work location, think about all of the data you're inundated with right now, and think of your teammates, administrators, guidance counselors, teachers. Does everyone have the data skill set to be able to make really strong decisions based on those data? Put in chat what you think. What do you think about that? All right. Yeah, I'm seeing mostly no. So look at all of the college majors requiring statistics and data science. And so my favorite statistic here is that at UVA last year, about 500 students minored in data science across 54 majors. So data literacy is not just STEM, it's across all sectors of the workforce and all disciplines. And so there's even a Data Science Literacy Act that was passed this year. It was proposed in February of 22, and then it was passed this year, and it was bipartisan, which is unusual. And that means lots of funding for schools for data literacy. And in Virginia, we really realize that our workforce needs those data skills, and you can't acquire them just from one high school data science course, however wonderful that course is. Really, for us to develop a data literate citizenry, we really need to start in kindergarten, pre-K, and go all the way up to K-12 to build that data science skill set. So Virginia has done exactly that in its revised math standards of learning with the new data focus. And the links here are to the revisions and the new standards. And so you'll see 2 data cycles popping up. The one on the left is the one used in data science. And the one on the right is the one that K through 12 will be using. And the 4 components of this data cycle are the same in K all the way up through Algebra 2, and then data science uses the more complex one. But if you look at the 4-component data cycle, you'll see that kids are formulating the questions from the data. And what you see here is right in the wording of the essential skills. And the essential knowledge and skills will tell you that it's the kids posing the questions, and they pose it from the data, which is different from statistics where you form one question and then everybody answers it, gets the same type of an answer. Here, kids are investigating and doing exploratory data analysis. They're collecting or they're acquiring data. They organize and represent data in visualizations. And visualizations is a new word for graphs, charts, tables, all of the representations that we have used in the past. Those are all kind of lumped under visualizations. And so then analyzing the data, and the most important part is communicating your results to an audience who uses the data for decision making. And so the standards of learning data literacy focus comes from research. And the Gaze 2 framework that is linked in here is worth reading. It's worth really diving into because it is the underlying framework that really underlies our standards around data science and data literacy. This document was written by the NCTM, but also the American Statistical Association. And in the year in which it was written, 2020, Trina Wilkerson, who was the president of NCTM at the time, came out with this statement on the left. And she said, the development of statistical thinking the wording of that needs to be changed to data literacy. And it's imperative today. Every individual needs data literacy. And so the Gaze 2 report really underlies all of our standards of learning in data literacy and data science. So let's see what a task would look like in data literacy. And this is a third grade task. It could be a vertical task used in K2, and it could also be used in 4-5, but it kind of centers nicely right around third grade. And it's in the Gaze 2 report with student work if you want to really dive into it deeply. What I'd like for you to do is go into the Gaze 2 slides that I have here for you. So I want you to, and you're just going to do this individually, but I want you to look at slide 53 through slide 57 and pull over the emojis and the icons where you see evidence of the data cycle that we just talked about. And the data cycle is on every one of the slides. And so read through, you'll have about 4 minutes to do this. Read through this task. And teachers are always asking me, what do these tasks look like? What are we actually doing in data literacy? And we know it's a cycle. We know that it's going to be a task. We're not going to be teaching just discrete skills, but what in the world does it look like? Well, this is what it looks like. So take about 4 minutes and go through the ladybug task and drag over those emojis where you see the data cycle, where you see evidence of all of those pieces of kids formulating their own questions, collecting and acquiring data, organizing and displaying the data in visualizations, and doing the data analysis, and then communicating those findings or results. 4 minutes, enjoy that. And I'm out of full screen mode so I can watch your work emerge. What are you noticing and wondering here about where you see the data cycle? So if you are not in the slides, Skip can put the bit.ly link into the chat.
It's telling us that we only have view access instead of edit access.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just changed it. Thank you you'll have to refresh. Thank you. Just drag those emojis over where you see the data cycle. Nice job. I'm seeing a lot of action next to the questioning. What does a ladybug usually look like? How many spots do ladybugs typically have? Do ladybugs tend to have more spots if they're red than black? Who's posing the questions? It's the kids. And it's not just one predetermined question. This is so cool. I'm noticing on 54, a lot of action next to the table, which is one of the visualizations, one of the representations. More questions. We have pictures of ladybugs, another representation, another visualization. And on 55, you guys are seeing a dot plot. That's in 5th grade. But you also have a picture graph. And then on 56, interpreting the results. So that's that final component or stage of the data cycle, interpreting the results. They're answering their investigative question. What do ladybugs usually look like? And what's really cool here that some of you guys are noticing is that there's a built-in assessment. Remember, Skip was talking about what would assessment look like with the data cycle with data literacy. And so the idea is that kids could self-assess and receive assessment here. The GAZE 2 report, which if you go into that framework, has assessment built in. And so it's kind of like the Van Healy levels in geometry where kids are at different levels of data literacy in terms of their thinking. And students at level A, which is a level in the GAZE 2 framework, can learn to informally assign numbers to the likelihood that something will occur. An example of assigning numbers would be in the number line shown in figure 12 there, that scale of probabilities. Nice job, everyone. And then on 57, you know, you guys are checking out the assessment piece. And so as you go through this, on 58, once you've finished checking out Ladybug and seeing what a data science, data literacy task looks like, then quickly put in where do you see the data cycle in the task. And if everybody puts, you know, 1 or 2 things in, we'll fill this up pretty quickly, but wanted to kind of have a summary document of what we just did. If you are working with teachers on your team in your CLT, or if you're a coach, you're working with teachers, Ladybug is a classic data literacy task to do with teachers and have them actually do it. And you can also bring student work from that. So I'm seeing popping up really quickly that students are generating the questions. And that's why in the SOLs, the actual wording is formulate questions. Using photographs to collect real data, okay. Under organizing and representing data, selecting visualizations, there are options for different visualizations. Ah, nice. They're creating a generalization. Yes, that's what we want them to do. That's awesome. Thank you. They're creating a generalization about a typical ladybug. Nice. Keep putting your thoughts in there. Thank you so much. We'd spend more time, but we have to move on quickly. But great job. On 59, you'll see the recommended instructional shifts from GAZE 2. And so if you are sharing at your school or in your CLT about what are the instructional shifts that would happen based on our new standards of learning for data literacy, these would be it, and this would be the slide you would share. So these enhancements include an emphasis on these things. We've talked a lot about students formulating questions, and it's not just in the beginning, but throughout the whole data cycle. And then using different types of data and variable types and multivariable thinking. Multivariate thinking means that we're not just looking at the color of the spots on the ladybug, and that's all we're looking at, that's all we're graphing, that's all we're going to be looking at our results on. We're going to look at many attributes of the ladybug and the idea of probabilistic thinking means that we're going to look at the underlying probability behind underlying all of statistics, and you saw that in that assessment piece. The role of technology we're going to get to in a second. This particular activity was largely unplugged, but you could have enhanced it with technology in creating the visualizations. And then there was a glimpse at what the assessment might look like in there. So these are the shifts that we're going to be looking for. So multivariate thinking requires its own slide, I think. And so if you look here, what is it? And it's the idea that very, very young kids are going to notice multiple attributes of the object that they're observing. So if they're thinking about a dog, what kind of attributes might they be thinking about with the dog? So put in chat, please, what attributes kids might be thinking about with a dog. Yeah, the color. Thank you. Thank you, Annie. Thank you, Erica. The height, spots or no spots, the breed, all kinds of things about a dog, right? The size, exactly. And so it's not just going to be about the color of the dog or the type of the dog. And so even in AP stats, you know, with high school kids, traditionally in statistics, you have unit 1 on univariate data, 1 variable, unit 2, bivariate data, 2 variables. But starting in pre-K and kindergarten, we can talk about multivariate thinking in data literacy. And so be thinking, and then comparing between those groups. And you'll see evidence of that in our new standards as well. And so I want to, I'm looking in chat, breed. Yep, thank you so much. And so I wanted to show you a second task, and we'll look at it a little differently. This one is called Streams of Data, and it's a 4th grade task. So it hits line graphs, and you can see the data in the table over on the right. And so you're looking at the height in feet of the river over time. And you'll see that there are a couple of links in here you might want to check out. Streams of Data brings you to the entire activity, lesson plans, slides, handouts, student work, how to use technology to create your visualizations. And it comes from the American Geosciences Institute. And so you've got all kinds of, PowerPoint slides, you've got everything that goes with that particular task. So that's really cool. But also be thinking about how can you integrate with science when so obviously this is a science topic, and Ladybugs also was integrating with science. And so how can you integrate math and science just naturally and really make it much richer? So where do you see the data cycle in this task? Where might kids be formulating questions, collecting, inquiring? We have a little bit of time. If we could just get a couple things in there, that would be super. Look at the previous slide, streams of data. Check out the student work that you see there. You can also go into the resource that I just shared. And you can actually see, I don't want to go too deep into it because of time, but I wanted you to really think in terms of if your kids were doing this, where would you see the data cycle? Yes, exactly. Do you find water moving as height of the river? Now, do you think they're probably acquiring the data or collecting the data from the American Geosciences Institute? What do you guys think? You guys can unmute. You don't have to just put it in chat, but you can. Yeah, they're acquiring the data typically here. Although you could design an investigation if you have a pond near your school or something like that, or a river. But typically this is an perfect example of kids acquiring data really early. And that's something that they'll be doing from big databases later on in high school. And so thinking in terms of these data literacy shifts, this is a meta-analysis based on research. of all the studies, all of them related to early elementary, middle, and high school data literacy. So we're talking about K-12. And it all boils down to this: using local real world data sets that kids are interested in, early exposure, that's you, pre-K through 5, using a variety of tech tools, and forming connections through cross-curricular inquiry-based learning. And that's the river, the streams, that's cross-curricular with science, and Ladybug is a perfect example of that. And so I was going to ask you, where do you see these data instructional shifts in the task? If somebody could just unmute and tell me, where do you see so far in what we've done, real world data, early K through 8 exposure, variety of tech tools, cross-curricular connections? What's the strongest thing you've seen, couple things you've seen so far? You can put it in chat or just unmute. These are these pedagogy instructional shifts that we're talking about.
The cross-curricular is really great because you have the opportunity to actually talk about the science and why it's important within the data and the math.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Yes, the domain of the data set really determines the content, and it can be anything: social studies, science. Yes, thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it. And then on the next one, where do you see the data instructional shifts in the mammals CODAP task? I'd like for you to click on the mammals CODAP task, and you'll see a dashboard pop up. And this is a dashboard with a data set about mammals. And so you'll see that there are directions here which you can minimize, and you can see some various different types of visualizations and graphs that kids have made. And you can see this one is looking at the diet of these 27 mammals. And before we get into that, I want to just show you one thing so you understand how this works. If you click on the cheetah, because you happen to like cheetahs, the cheetah is dynamically linked to the graph that you see over here. And if you click on another data point, the hyena, then now you're going to be clicking on the hyena over in the table. So you've got a spreadsheet here or a table. And then in order to create your visualizations when you're doing exploratory data analysis, kids are doing creating all kinds of graphs based on their questions, right? So they're pulling over the graph. All you have to do is click on that graph icon that you see in the menu at the upper left, and you can make it nice and big if you want. And you'll see that if you look at your attributes, which are in the headers across the top, you can drag over whatever you're interested in. Are you interested in habitat? Well, you can drag that over. You have a categorical variable there. And you'll see that you have there, if you go over to the menu, you can look at what you can do in terms of the analysis, the data analysis, and you can actually create a bar graph. And so you can see that there are more land mammals than water mammals, or both, and so forth. And so you can do all kinds of things here. You can also look at multivariate here. You can drag over diet, and it'll color code it by the diet. And you can see the omnivores and the carnivores and the vegetarians and so forth. You could play around with this for a long time, but my question for you would be, what question would you pose and investigate about mammals? And so quickly grab a new graph and play around with this for just a second. While you're doing that, instead of having you enter into the table, I would see CODAP really emphasizing the variety of tech tools there and cross-curricular connections with science, with the animals, and that early K through 8 exposure. And so I'm going to keep going just because our time is up. But again, the recommended shifts include really thinking about using multiple tech tools, a variety of tools. And I've put tools over here that are accessible to K through 5, even pre-K. I put a preschool data toolbox there. I have about 15 different tools that I've been investigating and using with kids. And tonight's not the night for the tech tools, but we'll have another session about the tech tools. And again, with the progression, you'll see what's new. We have the 16 standards here. And then in this session, we have all of the changes. And you'll see in kindergarten, the changes down in the box, what's new. And collection of data increases from 16 to 25 data points. And again, the data cycle is in every one of these as new, describing and labeling attributes of a set of objects that has been sorted. And you can see that there in terms of the changes. And in first grade, you can, again, the size of the data set is increased from 16 to 25. So every kid in the class can have their data point with whatever you're collecting. And the second one's just the data cycle. And every one of them, you're going to see the data cycle. You'll have in second grade, the number of data points increasing to 25. And you're doing pictographs and bar graphs, growing patterns. And then again, the data cycle. So as you go through these, you can check out the details because our time's kind of up. But in third grade, 30 data points. And then the data cycle, of course, and thinking in terms of the connection between two different visualizations. And if you go down to fourth grade, you'll see that it's just line graphs now in terms of the focus, and bar graphs have been removed because they've been done earlier. And so again, fifth grade, you'll notice that data cycles front and center. The terminology has been aligned with secondary. So line plots are also dot plots, same thing. And so the power of visualizations is what story is the data telling, and this exploratory data analysis that you did with CodeApp and that you did with the streams of data and the Ladybug is really where it's at. I put a roller coaster data set in there for you, and really wanted to have you think in terms of what would that data literacy data cycle look like in a task, in a rich task. And so over here, if you could just help me out while Skip's finishing up by dragging over a thumbs up for where you think we already do a good job with data literacy in the 16 standards, and then drag a light bulb where the 23 standards of learning will really increase those data literacy skills for kids. If you could just grab those over, that would be great. And then I'm going to stop sharing and turn it back to Skip.
Alrighty. Thank you, Deb. So as we are wrapping up this evening, just wanted to come back to our whole conversation, our whole talking points about pedagogy and assessment. Is hopefully you've seen how this really changes what our classrooms need to look like. Instead of the emphasis of, can we get kids to pass a test? Can we have them get an answer? It's really the focus of, can we get them to understand the math? Can we get them to be a math person? As you see, the little tagline there at the bottom of the stickers. We need to let our standards drive our instruction, not the assessment. And it's easier said than done. I get it. But you're here for a reason, because you wanted to learn about this stuff. And so we're sort of spreading seeds out and hoping that you take this back and work with your colleagues and work with your divisions to really help teachers see the importance of students having a conceptual understanding of the mathematics instead of just getting the answer. A lot of our students that struggle in mathematics is because they're trying to remember how to get an answer instead of really understanding the math. So that's what that tagline and what the sticker is there at the bottom of, yes, we want every student to be a math person, but the change of story applies to you as a teacher, you as an educator. We have to change what we are doing in the classroom with our students in order to help all our students feel like they're successful as math people, and to change the perception in the world of that it's okay to say that you are no good at math. So if the process, goals, and verbs, we talked about that. If it's not accessible, like the define or derive or investigate, you're not going to be able to do that on an SOL test. So what do you do in your classroom? Think about the ways of error analysis or explain and justify. For me, I'm all about flipping the I do, we do, you do, and doing it the other way around, letting the kids get dirty with the math and explore and investigate. And then we do some things together. Then I come in the end and provide that solid instruction just to wrap things up. And with the emphasis being that the process of learning is more important than the getting of the answer. Have them, tell the students, here's the problem, here's the answer, tell me why. So just think of different ways that you could ask the same thing, but in a way that's going to enhance student thinking. So that's really it, shift our thinking on how to embed those process goals. So as we are wrapping things up, hopefully when you see our success criteria, you can identify what the changes are in our standards and where the resources are in order to support your transition. You can talk about the process goals and how it impacts your instruction, and then also how to bring data literacy into your classroom for your students to work on that data cycle. With that being said, we would love it if right now you could give us some feedback. What resonated most with you from this presentation tonight? So if you could go to this QR code or that bit.ly and answer those 3 questions. What challenges do you anticipate having? We are going to take this information and share it with VDOE. We'll share it with VASCL. We'll share it with the Math Supervisor Organization to say, what supports do we still need in Virginia to help your job become easier? As I sort of mentioned earlier, I do math consulting now. That's what I love doing. I love working with teachers. I've public education for 31 years. I know how hard it is. So with that being said, what are the things that you anticipate being difficult, and what questions might you still have about the SOL revisions? VASCL may put on some more sessions. There might be some other things VDOE does as they're doing SOL institutes to try to help your job become easier. So with that, you have the link there. If you in the presentation, you can get it that way. And then I mentioned the stickers. If you want everyone as math person changes to a sticker, just go there and fill out the form. And Deb also has some data literacy stickers that we will send you as well, free of charge. We just want to try to change the mindset that everyone is a math person, and data literacy is important, and process goals are important. So anything that you can do to help continue to spread the word, let us know. So there's a form on there. If you want a sticker, let me know. Again, it's free. I send it out to people throughout the US. The final thing is there's my card. As I mentioned, I'm a consultant, but if you have questions, call, ask, email, tweet, whatever, I'm a thought partner for you. So again, I appreciate all of you. I love all of you. Thank you for what you're doing on a daily basis with students. The job doesn't get the positive feedback. So a big virtual hug. Hey, there we go. Hope you felt it. So for that, thank you for being here tonight. Deb, do you have anything that you'd like to say?
Thanks for diving into data literacy. And if you want some more resources, particularly with the tools and the tasks, just reach out to me, because I've got a lot more than what you saw tonight. It was just a short time to be together. But thank you so much for really being our heroes in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Thank you. Have a great
And we'll
rest
go
of your
stop the recording, and we'll hang on for questions that you might have as well. So yeah, otherwise, have a great rest of your day and a greater weekend coming up.
Thanks, everyone.